fact, I'll just start off saying, Nancy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, there we go. So with that incredible intro, welcome to Ocast, your island gateway to all things geek. Tonight we are taking a look into the unseen side of the Buffy universe by exploring the expanded universe. Who better to take us on that journey than one of the key figures? New York Times best-selling author Nancy Holder is our guest tonight. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
And I'm going to welcome you again, Graham. It's been an even longer time since we spoke to each other last week.
It's been a whole, I don't know, minute.
5 minutes. So with that, Nancy, we always kick off with yourself at the start. Did you always want to be an author? Did you have the book bug from an early age, or was this something you fell into later on in life?
Well, it's interesting. I wanted to be a ballerina, but I got early encouragement to be a writer. And I hadn't thought of that when I thought about what I was going to tell you. I did go to Germany and I studied ballet at a German ballet or music high school. I was in the dance department of a German high school. But my father passed away and I went back to the United States and finished high school. So if you know anything about ballet, and I'd be absolutely shocked if you didn't, of course, time is a wasting. And so because I had moved back to the States and started classes at a local ballet school that wasn't all that, my career kind of was not going to happen. And then I did go back one more time to try to resume, but I got injured. And so I just floundered around, but there was always kind of in the background that interest in writing. And my father used to think it would be so funny if I became a writer because our last name is Jones, and that I told people my name isn't really Nancy Jones, that's my pen name. He thought it'd be really hilarious. So there was kind of in the background for a long time, but at first I really did want to be a ballet dancer.
And this might go off a little bit off course here, but I was thinking about it, as an author, you were given the Buffyverse, obviously. And I remember in the 90s, there was this explosion of tie-in novels for a lot of things. You had Star Wars, Star Trek, X-Files.
Yep.
And Stargate was the other one. And then there was Buffy. And did you feel a challenge in doing Buffy? Because those other three are in vast universes. Almost you can go anywhere and do anything. Buffy is very focused on this one town with this small group of folk. Was that a big challenge to come up with fresh ideas?
No, because actually for us tie-in people, the feeling was when you write tie-in novels, because the characters and the world is so well defined already, you can move around in it and you can change the tone. So there might be a romantic Buffy or a really scary Buffy or a mystery Buffy. So you could still go within different genres as long as you were in Buffy. And that was really cool. And the other really great thing about being a tie-in writer when you're having a career as a writer is if your book doesn't do well, people blame the show. Not you. So, yeah. But yeah, there were constraints. I tried to kill Kennedy and that got in trouble. They said, now, obviously, you can't kill a major character. But, and there were things like same problem with the show, which is we knew we couldn't really put anybody in jeopardy. If Buffy was going to be next season, we couldn't do anything where you really think she's going to die. Stuff like that, but really not as much as you might think. But I understand what you're saying because my very first tie-in book was for Highlander. If you know Highlander,
right.
Come back, and that was much more free form in the sense of, you had to get a villain and a story, and you could go in the past and all that. But we did, all of us tie-in writers for Buffy, I think, really did push it as much as we could, and we could push it pretty far.
Yeah.
So
I've got to ask about the Highlander book. Did you at least comment on Connor MacLeod's Scottish accent? Did you at least have a joke with that? It's a source of much amusement here. What's that?
I have no idea, but one of the producers at Buffy said he met Adrian Paul in a bar and said he was
Yeah.
very macho. But I actually met him at the University of California at Los
Yeah.
Angeles. They had a special showing of the end of his Highlander.
Yeah.
And he fixed my camera for me, and we had this big buffet. It was very nice. And so it was very fun to meet Adrian Paul.
All right, Graham, we'll bring you in there as the big Buffy fan on this one.
I was thinking that, you know, that was before the show had fully established its lore around Halloween, and that vampires can't stand Halloween. They think it's tacky. So, what was it like trying to build the kind of the mythos for a TV show that was? It was almost like it was changing the rules every time a new episode aired.
Well, what happened, the way I got started in Buffy was, um, I had a friend who had been approached to write Buffy, a guy,
Mhm.
and he said, "I'm not really the person for this," and he recommended me. And so
Mhm.
I went to the editor who was they were what editors do often in these kind of situations is bid on the rights. And so
Yeah.
I went to the editor he said had asked him, and she said, I didn't win the auction. This is who won the auction." So at that time, I was really, really busy, but I wanted
Mhm.
Buffy. I knew it was coming. I knew so much. I knew as much as I could without it being on the air. And I asked Christopher Golden if he wanted to collaborate with me. And so we thought up a whole bunch of plot outlines and faxed them. In those days, you fax people. And we got a green light within 24 hours, and we wrote that book in 3.5 weeks. And so what happened was they FedExed us scripts. And so we read
Mhm.
about 5 or 6 scripts, and we realized that when Joss Whedon wrote the scripts, he talked funny. It was funny. It was
Mhm.
weird language, and we would highlight it, and we called it Slayer speak. We didn't know what it was, but we knew how he'd like pause, neg, all that stuff
Yep.
in the early in so we thought we had a handle on everything, and then, of course, as this episodes came out, we're like, "Oh, that's different." So, as as the mythos continued, it got more and more frequent that what we turned in was either against what they were gonna do
Yeah.
next,
Mhm.
or I still remember getting a phone call, and I think it was Chris said, "His name is Liam?" Because we hadn't known that forever. So things like that were weird, and, it was harder with Angel, but,
Mhm.
because Buffy started out as like a monster of the week, and
Yeah.
then they realized people were interested in the characters, and so they
Mhm.
used to call it the soap opera, that the soap opera was the big deal, and you had to stay in continuity with all of that, and
Yep.
so it was just a monster show, um, and that made it more complicated. But with Angel, I didn't get much information at all, and I wrote an entire novel that they said, "This is really beautiful, but it's not correct." So they
Yeah.
couldn't publish it, and I had to rewrite it. So, yeah.
Was there anything that you wrote in terms of the mythos that the show then adopted? Just thinking about that going the other way.
Say that again?
Was there anything that you wrote in any of the novels that the show then adopted as this is going to
Oh,
actually be a
yes.
rule in the show or canon or?
Yeah, Chris and I created something called the Ghost Roads, and I think they use that somehow as time has marched on. But,
Mhm.
one thing I really liked was I was a big nut of jazzercise. I love jazzercise. It's an aerobics dance thing, and
Yep.
twice they referenced jazzercise on the show, and I'm like, "Oh god, I hope that's for me." So, that was really cool. That was way cool. Um,
Um,
Yeah.
uh, 2 times something that I had written, well, yeah, um, got in the way. I had
Okay.
written a book where a kid goes to high school and starts shooting people.
Mhm.
And that was
yeah.
2 weeks before in United States, a kid did that in Littleton, Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was called Columbine, and
Mhm.
I'm embarrassed to say this because it turns out I had a friend whose daughter was there when that happened, but I was watching the
Okay.
news and I went, "Oh my God, my book." That's the first thing I said. And they held that book for a year, and,
Yeah.
um, and I rewrote the beginning. Another time, I wanted to make the first be the bad guy, and I wrote the whole novel. I don't know why they didn't, like, notice, but they didn't, and, after I turned it in, they said, "Oh, we're gonna use the first." So I had to change my the first to Jack the Ripper. So that
Alright.
was frustrating because I just thought it was so genius. Obviously, it was, but they had already thought of it and made a plan to use it. So that was frustrating, but it's showbiz.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, in those instances.
See, I'm curious, like, when you're writing the novels, were you doing them in sequence? And by that, I mean, you were writing season 1 novels, then season 2, or were you jumping back and forth
Jumping back
between
and forth, definitely, and we
the
would say,
Yeah,
this story takes place between these 2 episodes of this
yeah.
season," or, "This one is over
Mhm.
here." And so, at first, if I recall correctly, we
Yeah.
did a lot of flashbacks to previous Slayer lore to kinda
Uh-huh.
get around it, to be safe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
'Cause I'm guessing then that creates another challenge, like, I mentioned those other spin-off novels, and the main cast are adults.
mhm.
And with
Mhm.
Buffy, like, season 1 Buffy is 15, season 7 Buffy is in her early 20s,
Uh,
and we know ourselves, you're a different person 15 to was that quite a chat, like, 1 month you got a season 1, and then you've got a season 6 novel and trying to reflect the change in the characters, like, the growth
not as much as you would think,
right,
because I think each character was so iconic, like
yeah,
Xander was
Uh-huh.
one way, Buffy was always one way, and their situations were different, but she was always smart alecky and punning and
So, the Slayer.
Yeah, that's me.
We thought you were a myth.
Well, you were mistaken.
all that, and her issues were different, but she
yeah,
herself was kind of timeless, and,
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and so sometimes when you're doing, books like this, the weird thing is that on a show, the characters, even if they're really well defined, are still kind of, um ciphers. People give them a lot more freedom because you're
yeah,
imagining what it would be like if you were Buffy or if you were Buffy's
yeah,
best friend. When you read a book, you're slower and it's more concrete. So when I was writing my Highlander book, for example, I had questions like, how does Duncan get through an airport security system if he's carrying around a katana?
yeah,
Or can he tell if it's more than one immortal near him?
yeah,
And they
Uh-huh.
didn't and so on the show, you don't stop and go, "Wait a minute, how would he get through?" You don't
yeah,
do that. And the same thing would happen with Buffy. And so that
yeah.
is an issue.
Yeah, it's the thing Jeff pointed out, like, really, the vampires would just surround Buffy's house with guns, and that'd be the end of the show.
Right,
But
right.
but it's done in such a way, you're never thinking about that really when you're watching an episode, like, it could
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
just you're in America, there's no shortage of guns, you could take out the Slayer so simply.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My husband and I are huge fans of Italy, and we watch
yeah,
Italian pop shows almost every night. We're studying Italian,
yeah,
and there'll be some criminal running down the alley, and we go, "Just shoot him. Just
Uh-huh.
shoot him." Like, we're Americans. Really sad. And that was, if you remember, Buffy only I think there were 2 times there were guns in the entire
yeah,
show. Darla
Uh-huh.
shot when she was in her first episode, and then Buffy says, "Guns are never useful," or "Guns are never good," or whatever she says, and
yeah,
stops the bullets, so
yeah.
Yeah.
so
Alright, Graham, do you
yeah,
want to come in
control.
there?
Yeah, I thought it was something you said you'd written your own novel where it was effectively the Columbine sort of situation. Was that was that novel partially adapted for the episode Earshot?
No,
Where no,
no, no,
no,
it wasn't. No, well, not that I know, and if it had been, it was completely they own it. That's the thing about being a tie-in writer is, I
yeah,
don't know if you've heard about
Yeah,
it, but right now there's a big lawsuit against an AI company, that
mhm,
took, books and did ingested them to make AI. And so authors are suing them for their books. They send you a list. These are the books that they took from you. And any of those books, I don't have the copyright on.
Yeah.
And in the United Kingdom and in Britain, when a scriptwriter writes a movie, I believe that it is copyrighted by the author. That's not the
Yeah.
case in Hollywood. So it's the same kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I
So if you
remember-
change something or use something, it's theirs. And
Yeah.
I like to think that they noticed that I wrote it, but
Basically, I think the law is here. The second you write something, it's copyrighted to you, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't have
Yeah.
to register or anything. You just have to show, no, I created this. That's all that's needed. It's a lot.
well,
Yeah,
the
it's
thing is,
quite-
before I write it, I have signed a contract and agreed that it's their
That
copyright
belongs to them.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very similar to the conversation that we had with someone from the computer games industry the other night,
Yes.
who
Yes.
was talking about he's not precious about the pixels that he draws because he's doing it. Part of his contract, it belongs to the company.
Yeah.
Although he used a lot more industrial language to describe that guy, to say the least. If you listen to that show, Nancy, if certain words, he was he's from Liverpool and he speaks. Yes, he was quite industrious in his language. We'll say, describing like corporations and that.
As well as his work.
Yes. I'm also curious. Like, I know that with the Buffy comics, the creators were quite heavily were they as involved with the novels as much? So I know like season 8 and 9 of the comics, like Joss and them did actually have an active role in that. Were they ever in touch with you guys about anything or guiding you?
First of all, when I did the encyclopedia, I did the comic section, and holy moly, holy. Speaking of copyrights and things, it was so hard to figure out what was canon and what wasn't. And I actually took all of my comic book research. I bought every single comic collection, and I had so many Buffy comics. I had pounds, and I mean kilos, whatever, of stones of comics. And I took all my research and I made this big chart, and I took it to a comic guy at a comics convention in Chicago, Illinois. And I said, "Is this right?" And he went, "Yes." And so I was so happy. But I'm sorry, season 8 and 9 are berserko. They're just nuts. But I did talk to some of the Buffy writers who also wrote comics, and they got it was dependent on whether or not it was considered canon. With us, what we usually would do was, let's say, here's Los Angeles, here's New York, and it would go like, and here's San Diego. So it would go, San Diego would talk to New York, to the publisher. The publisher would talk to LA. LA would talk to the publisher would talk to us. Unless we went on set, which we did. And then they would just talk to us. We got in trouble once, Chris and I, because we got a picture of, God, what was his name? Seth Green in the show.
Oz.
And he,
Oz.
thank you, yes. And he was dressed up like a werewolf in a Polaroid, and it was the only picture they had of him as a werewolf at the time. And the makeup guy, Todd McIntosh, gave it to us. And our publisher, our editor, got mad at us because we hadn't gone through channels. And we said, "Excuse us, we're sitting on the set in Los Angeles, and somebody there is giving us a picture to use in the book. Why would we call you first to see if it's okay?" So that was a little weird. But yeah, it was a little weird. But she's not in the industry anymore, so I can say that. But she was mad. She was mad at us. And we were getting models from people, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, you could have it." And like, blah. And we were like, "Gee, this is gold." So yeah.
So like what do you like? You said you were on the set. Did you get a chance to speak to the actors, and were they quite
Yes.
helpful in helping you
Yes.
get stuff or did they ever give you well,
Yes.
this is what I think about my character. And you go, oh, yeah, I think I might go with that.
At first, we had a liaison, Caroline
Yeah.
Kellett, and she was up on the staff, and she would introduce us and say, "This is Nancy, and she's interviewing people for the Buffy
Mm.
Watcher's Guide," and which was the episode guidebook that we wrote. We wrote 2 of them, and we wrote an angel. Um, and can she talk to you? And so after a couple days, everybody was so friendly, and they had seen me and Chris and other
Mm.
people so often, they just went, "Oh, sure, come on over." And so what the 2 really nice things, super nice things that happened were, when I was first doing it, I was gonna interview David Boreanaz, and we sat down, and he started tearing the set apart, so it was very noisy. And he said, "Do you wanna move?" And I said, yes, if you don't mind." And he gathered up all my tape recorders and all my stuff, and he carried it for me into another place. We sat down, we started talking, and they started vacuuming. And he said, "You wanna move again?" Well, the catch is when you're interviewing actors who are working, there's a good chance they'll be called away and they'll have to
Yeah.
perform again.
Mhm.
This actually happened when I was trying to interview Joss Whedon. The first couple times when I started to interview him, he would be called away. So he actually came with me and we sat on a dark set, no lights, so nobody knew where he was. But the other nice thing I was going to tell you about was Marc Blucas was the nicest, sweetest, dearest actor of the whole group. And
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can't say good about how wonderful he is. Um, there was a thing, and I can't go into, but I was getting very nervous that I was gonna be asked to leave, not that I did anything, just a situation that was going on. I thought, "Oh dear, they're not gonna want an onlooker to see this going on." And so I sort of sat away and I didn't know what to do. And he came over and he said, "Would you like some hot chocolate?" And so I said, "Yes, thank you very much." So everything worked out and life went on, but he was super nice. And so I was teaching a short story writing class on horror at
Uh-huh.
the university I graduated from in California. And I mentioned his story, and it turned out that a friend of his mother's was taking my class. So she went home and called, "Your son is so nice." So anyway, I love Mark Blucas. I think he's a wonderful person, and it was very kind of him to smooth it out for me.
Uh-huh.
Just double checking him. That's Riley, isn't it? The Riley
Yes.
actor.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
Riley, and I'm
I know.
sorry,
I always
I'm
feel
being
bad when I hear these stories and their character doesn't go down so well on the show. It's so
I know.
like he's not liked in Buffy circles, the character, but it's such a shame when you hear he's such a lovely guy behind the scenes.
I know. Well, now that I'm Joyce's age, I'm
Yeah.
saying Riley was the right choice, but, before he had his little addiction issue, but,
Uh-huh.
Angel, Spike, season 6 of Spike, I'm sorry, um, Riley.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I know what the incident with
He's
Spike in
such a
season
nice
6
young
is.
man. You should go with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Sorry,
did,
Graham.
yeah, I was gonna say you did quite a lot of the Angel novels as well, Angel Chronicles. How is it more difficult to write from inside Angel's head than it is from the Scooby Gangs? Because it's a bit more intense, a bit more broody than the sort of snappy.
When part of the reason that I got the Buffy gig in the first place was that I had written romance novels and I had
Uh-huh.
written horror. And so, um, they thought, "Oh, Buffy, romance, horror, okay, yeah, cool." So Angel was more horror, and so I was very comfortable being in that, more gritty world, and so it was not an issue, and I loved the Angel show. I loved both shows. Um and it was funny when Angel ended, I did not know what the ending was gonna be. Buffy, I did know,
Uh-huh.
but Angel, I didn't know how it was gonna end, and when Angel pulls out his sword and he goes, "Let's get to work," I went,
Yep.
I don't know if this is a family show, but I said something, "You," to Joss Whedon. I went, "You," because I cracked up. I thought, "This is a great ending for this show," and I was laughing because it was prima bella to me. But, But
Yeah.
it was not hard. It was not. It was actually fun. It was really fun because that was the world I identified with the most was horror, and so
Okay.
no problem.
I have to agree about the angel ending. I know a lot of people, like all good endings, it divides people.
Yeah.
But personally, I enjoyed it because yes, okay, they're off to fight the apocalypse, but at the same time, what have they been doing the whole time? It's Wednesday. We're off fighting evil again. We might come
Yeah.
back, we might not.
Yeah,
It was just so tonally right for the show.
I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, Graham, after, but you said are you saying nerds argue? I've never heard of this before.
Apparently so.
Yeah, nerds like to argue. This is shocking revelation tonight.
Coming next year, we might even say that some of them, when they tell you how much they love a franchise or a series or whatever, it almost sounds like they hate it because they can't find anything good to say. And we always hope that we are not that podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I remember, these intense debates people had when any show was on. Everybody's just in it. And I will share that near the end of Buffy, when Buffy was ending, and in Hollywood we say ending, not canceled or going away. We say ending. The rumor was out that David Boreanaz was going to come back and they were going to reunite. So I felt sorry for Spike, but that's life. So I wrote an entire novel in which they reunite and have one last adventure, and it was published. This infuriated the Spike people. They were so furious. They started a secret webpage, and they were called the Sparklies, and they organized having 91-star reviews on Amazon the day that book came out. So I was devastated. I'm like, what happened? And so somebody told me what was happening. So I told the publisher and they removed the 1-star reviews. But after that, I had to go to a convention. And somebody said, somebody is going to approach you and they're a Spike person and they're going to try to get you on a recording saying that you like Angel better than Spike. I'm like, okay. So I wore a Spike t-shirt to the convention and somebody walked up looking really nervous and I thought, oh, this is so weird. And and being in the United States, something bad could happen to me. So I just said, Spike's great. I love him. I love all the people and Buffy slept with. They're all great. But I was nervous. So there were a lot of little things like that, with speaking of debates and crazy.
So if we were to put you on the spot, who'd you prefer?
Once and for all, admitted now.
You already said it was Riley because Marc Blucas.
Of not this. While we're not on the topic of this, I have to tell you how much I love Stargate SG-1. I love Stargate. Love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, back to Buffy.
Yeah, I was thinking you have segued nicely because you said about your background being horror. You've won a few Bram Stoker Awards in your time.
What?
You've won a few Bram Stoker Awards.
Oh yes. Yes.
And am I right in saying you won on one of them was one of the evenings that Stephen King was nominated?
Yes, you're right. Thank you for pointing that out because I don't ever say it. Americans are supposed to brag, but it was pretty cool. But when I first got published, the first time I sold a book, which was anything, I never wrote or sold a short story or an article or anything.
Yeah.
I sold a novel first. I wrote Stephen King because I was such a big fan, and I told him that I was too broke to buy hardback books. And I told myself, if I ever sell a novel, I'm going to buy on Dance Macabre, which was his book about writing in hardback. And I used to circle it like a shark at the bookstores, but I couldn't afford it. I'm not going to buy it unless I sell something. So when I did sell my first book, I got a bottle of champagne and that book. And I sat on a couch all weekend drinking this warm, flat champagne and reading Dance Macabre, crying. And so I wrote him a letter. And I told him how excited I was and la la la. And I didn't know what to call him, so I called him Dear Stephen King. And he wrote back and he said, Dear Nancy Jones, because that was my name then, Nancy
Yeah.
Jones, Dear Nancy Jones. And so then later on, I got a book contract with his publisher. So I wrote him again, and I told him this time for my prize, I got a limited edition of Cujo. And it was from a publisher that they numbered the copies. So I said, Dear Stephen King. And I wrote him, I said, Nancy Jones or number 257. And he wrote back, Dear Nancy Jones or number 257. And I'm like, oh, he wrote again. And I was so excited. I did that thing where you see if it's really the signature of the real person. And it was. And I still have my 2 postcards from Stephen King. So it's very, very cool. But yes, I did beat him, but I don't even know if he knows. I mean, he's so famous and got so much going on. I did.
Yeah.
She beat me. I don't think he might have noticed. But
So you didn't approach him at the words and say, Dear Stephen King, Nancy Jones.
I won, ha ha. But no, years later, another writer, Nancy Kilpatrick, and I were editing an anthology, and we wanted to approach him about doing a reprint, a story that had already been published. And she lived in Canada, I lived in the United States, and back then we had long distance charges. And she said, call his office. I said, oh, I can't, I'm too shy. And she goes, oh my God, just call his office. I said, I can't. So she said, if I call from Canada, it's going to cost more. I said, I know, I'm sorry. And so she called him, but she called his office. And this is professionalism to a T, because it was Goth, Goth. And so she got his person, who was actually his sister-in-law, and said, hi, we're looking for a reprint from Stephen King for a Goth anthology. And she said, that is so kind of you to think of him, but I just don't think he's ever written anything about golf. Golf. But she didn't, and Nancy said, oh, well, it's Goth. And she said, oh, well, let me see, and I'll get back. But in that instance, we did not get Stephen King. But it was so sweet. He goes, oh, how kind of you to think of him, golf. But it was very, very, very sweet. But I was too shy to call him. What a dork. Anyway.
So there is one other tie-in novel I want to, and it's kind of related to what we said about fandom earlier. You did the Ghostbusters 2016
I did.
novelization.
I did.
Were you aware at the time of that whole, there's no other, that ridiculous shitstorm that was brewing around it? Were you aware whilst you were doing, and did that affect your writing in it at all?
You mean about the wokeness of it being all women?
Yeah, because
yeah.
women, we know.
Yeah.
There's women in this movie.
Yes,
I will say that was a very exciting experience, because I got to go to the studio. It used to be Desilu. It used to be Culver City. It was where parts of Gone with the Wind were filmed. So it was very, very historical. So I got there, and they had Ghostbusters cars out front, and the entire production office looked like the fire station. And so I'm like, this is so cool. And I went out to lunch with my liaison, and then I got to see stills and videos on the assistant's computer, because the movie hadn't come out yet. And so I'd say, okay, what does this look like? What does that look like? What does this look like? And then they gave me the script, and then they were going to have a rough cut of the movie that night, but they couldn't get permission for me to see it, which I know sounds weird, but I didn't have permission. So I went home, and then the next day the assistant called me and said, okay, I'm going to give you the order of the scenes. This is the scene. This is the way it's cut now. And this happens to tie-in people a lot. Like, you'll get a script, you'll think everything's set, and then they'll say, oh, no, we changed it. You're like, okay. But I did know. And I didn't care, because I had done, I can't remember I did Wonder Woman, I think, after that. But I was totally into the fact that it was all girls and all women, and wouldn't that be fun? And the nice thing about working on that book is they let me add scenes of my own. And so there are a few scenes I added, side quests, just to make it long enough, basically. But it was really, really fun, and it was so heady because it was Ghostbusters, and
Yeah.
everything looked like Ghostbusters, and they had a huge Lego thing that had just come out. It was being sold, and they had put it together, and it was in a glass case. It was just
Yeah.
neat. So, and I saw Dan Aykroyd with his parents.
All
We
right.
were eating
Oh,
in a dining
cool.
room, and there was a separate dining room where he was with his parents, and my liaison said, "Look, there's Dan Aykroyd." So that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say there about how it changed, like for tie-in writers, how it changes, because the most famous one of that is I once had the omnibus of the Alien movies,
Uh-huh.
you know, and Alien 3 noticeably, that novelization was, because that film was notorious on how much the script, it was actually a totally different film, and so the book is just radically different from what ended up on the screen. So yeah, I kind of get what you mean there.
And then what happens in the reviews, people go, "Obviously, Nancy Holder has never seen a Buffy episode." I mean, she just doesn't she know his name is Liam? And you're like, well, we found that out in a different season." So, yeah.
Graham, I'll put you back in there.
Yeah, I think that the wokeness of Ghostbusters in a way sort of segues to one of the other questions I had, which was you've spoken before about women in the industry being overlooked, particularly in horror. But you've also kind of said that women don't necessarily put themselves forward enough after being rejected. How did you develop your own resilience for these sorts of things? And is there advice that you would give to any young female authors or professionals out there that might be listening?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that. I actually went early on to a women in film panel up in Los Angeles. And there was a very famous producer named Sherry Lansing there, very, very famous. And she told this story. And she said, when a guy gives me a script or approaches me about something and I say no, they try again. And she said, with women or girls, when I say no, they don't try again. And she said, they don't push. And she said, you need to try again. And so that's what I will say. You need to try again. And you need to figure out how you can move yourself forward in your own way. I'm still frustrated with myself because I don't put myself forward with as much naturalness as a lot of guys I know. I'm shyer, and I'll give credit to people for things I did. I'll go, "Wait, I did that." But I'll say, "Oh, so and so," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, I did that."
Yeah.
And it's very you don't want to be too pushy, and you don't want to ask too much, and so you have this extra layer of politeness, which I'm sure you guys, being Scots, understand because you are a more civilized nation. But I had a British editor who was very annoyed with Americans in general and said, "All you guys do is push your own stuff. Like if we're on a panel talking about werewolves, well, my werewolf novel," and he said, "It's so annoying." So that even made it worse. So, I like, "Well, I don't want to talk about werewolves if you don't want to. Are you comfortable talking about werewolves?" Okay. So I would say to women now, go ahead and be bolder and be more forthright about you taking up as much space as the guy next to you, and don't take no for a final answer. It's okay to be cool and say, "Yeah, okay, I get you," and not do something and not push, but find another way and don't give up. Don't give up. That's the secret. And that's what I did. I asked a lot of girlfriends and said, "How do you manage living in Hollywood? How do you deal with it?" And one of them said, "I'm gonna be the last man standing." And she said it that way, and I thought, "Yeah, yeah, okay, me too." And so my mantra was, "I will last." Not that I will be last, but I'll do what it takes to have a long career. And so sometimes I did stuff or took on jobs or whatever that maybe weren't my first choice, but it was something to keep going.
Yeah. Gotta ask, like, do you ever encounter, like, amongst other authors? I know, because I had this myself when I was in school, because I read loads of tie-in books, like the old Star Wars, like the Thrawn trilogy, probably one of the greatest tie-in. And I remember my English teacher looked down on me so much for reading. Have you ever experienced that just with other authors? They look, well, you're a tie-in author. Is there a bit of that in the author world?
Oh, yeah. One of
Right.
the very first, it was a science fiction fantasy convention with writers and fans and la la la. It was my
Yeah.
very first one. And I walked into a panel to observe, and they were all talking about, well, I would never write a tie-in book, for sure. And all three of the people on that panel eventually wrote tie-in books. And I thought, mm-hmm. But yeah, and there's a lot of jostling and a lot of, I've written for young adults and children, and like, oh, when are you going to write an adult novel? Or, horror, you write horror. Oh, is there something wrong with you?
Yeah.
And so there's always this little, yeah. And then I used to
Yeah.
teach in a Master's of Fine Arts writing program, and not among the students, but in some faculty, there was a little bit of that. We were writing about werewolves, and that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I didn't have an MFA degree myself, and I was always afraid I was going to get fired. So I actually started looking at MFA programs at universities around the United
Yeah.
States. And there was one in Texas, and it said, if you write about fairies or unicorns or vampires or things like that, don't apply. So I thought, this will never end. So yeah, there is, but
Yes.
I think among writers who have professional lives who make a
Yeah.
living writing, there's less of that
Yeah.
as they're too busy trying to survive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Because I remember Philip K. Dick, when I read his biography, quite famously, like when he was being introduced in circles, say, "Oh, you're an author. What are you writing?" You go, "Oh, science fiction." Really embarrassed because like he said, did he write? He wrote "Man in the High Castles." Look, I can do proper writing. So yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from with that. Sorry,
Yeah.
Graham, you can-
It's funny
No,
you
but-
should mention that. I just reread The Game Players of Titan. It just like a couple weeks ago, which he wrote.
Oh yeah, well, I tried reading the Ubik trilogy, and it was just what's going. Yeah, that was something else. Anyway, Graham, you had a question there.
No, I was just going to concur. I remember very vividly doing my English portfolio that we had to do at the time,
Oh yeah,
and be really keen to do either. I think it was I wanted to do The Shining,
Yeah.
and that wasn't allowed because horror's not real literature. And I was technically not allowed to do Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I did it anyway.
good on you.
Good for you.
and the way I got around it was that I was going to analyse the humour, which basically led to me sort of quoting a whole load of passages that I found funny and saying, this is funny because it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
But I struggle with almost the snobbery around it, because
Yeah,
ultimately the goal of an author is to sell a book, I imagine. And if a book is popular, that means that there has to be some level of good to it, for want of a better word.
Well-
So, and I think when we look through all of book sales history stuff, there is such a huge market for horror, for young adult stuff. And yeah, I don't really understand why there's this kind of, well, that's not proper. Well, yes, it
It's
is.
just, it's funny because when I taught in my master's program, I would explain to my students, because they had to fulfill certain requirements and they had to write a thesis and, with citations and footnotes and a bibliography and all that stuff. And they'd be doing The Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or whatever, but we were the popular fiction department and it was perfectly allowed. But then there'd be certain things you had to do to get a master's at our university that weren't like that. Everybody had to do, and I would say to them, "This is the way you join the funny hat club, because when you graduate, you get a funny hat." And but there were, of course, in lots of universities, this was not cool. And my university, which was the University of Southern Maine, was one of the first universities that had a popular fiction department. And so, and we were also a low residency program, so you could do most of your work semester by semester at home, and then we would all fly to Maine or to Dingle, Ireland, because we had a campus there for a while, and
Okay.
do your work. So yeah, but yeah, you're right. That happens a lot
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
still.
I'm just going back to the snobbery and all. You're about the same age as me, Graham. So when
Mhm.
I was doing my senior English that was when Trainspotting had just come out as a novel
Yep.
and a film. And I specifically remember someone in my class saying, I want to do this for I don't know if you have it in America, we call it the review of personal reading. In your
Oh,
last year, you do a full analysis of a book. It's meant to be a book of your choice, but it's really not.
It's not.
It's like they'll say, no, go to this list. And you're like, don't
Mhm.
like any of them. Can't I?
Mhm.
No, that's not. Why? Then I'm not reviewing what I read then. It's like,
Yep.
how quick. But this guy said, I want to do Trainspot. And they were like, oh, that guy doesn't even write in proper English. It's just trash,
Uh-huh.
that. But now I hear, because growing up now, and I've obviously got friends who their kids are in high school, say, oh no, Irvin Welsh is now celebrated suddenly.
Uh-huh.
And I remember, like, he was just saying, oh, it's trash, it's gross,
Yep.
it's just tacky. But now he's celebrated not only as an author, it's just one of the great minds in Scotland. So,
right. Well, it's funny because that seems to there are cycles. Like for a
yeah,
while, it was very cool in academia to study comic books, and then it was
Uh-huh.
cool before that science fiction.
yeah,
And now Buffy has we have our own academic conference. It's called Slayer Lit, and Buffy Studies. And I'm not sure the name changed slightly over time, but they have Mr. Pointy Awards, and it's very
Uh-huh.
academic, but it's very fun. And I went to the first one. I was a guest speaker, and I sat in on the panels for the presenting of the papers, and I had written the episode guidebooks. So they'd say, "No, as we see in Holder," and then everybody go and smile at me. I'm like, "This is really weird," but it was very academic, and so it's kind of shishy in a funny way to adopt things that were in the past were not
yeah,
considered.
Yeah.
But, I mean, look at Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens in his
Uh-huh.
time was a popular fiction writer, and now we study, Charles Dickens, and we read Bleak House and, my goodness, and the Brontes, and they were just kind of writers of the day, and now they're the
Yeah.
class there's a thing called the cult of the classics,
yeah,
and it's what we
Uh-huh.
all agree are the classics of literature. And
yeah.
so, yeah, it's
So
interesting.
Yeah.
I think if I remember right, was it Samuel Pepys? He like really trashed Dickens quite heavily.
Uh-huh.
Like, it just shows you how it comes around sometimes.
Well, I'm a
Yes.
big Edgar Allan Poe fan, and
Yeah,
Edgar Allan Poe and Charles Dickens were getting together trying to get copyright established in each other's countries because you
yeah,
could take American stuff and publish it in England and there were no copyrights, and vice versa.
mhm,
And then
Uh-huh.
Edgar Allan Poe, as was his wont, trashed Dickens behind his back to some
yeah,
friend, and Dickens heard about it and cut him off. And this happened
Uh-huh.
over and over to poor Edgar Allan Poe,
yeah,
but yeah, Dickens had something to do with that, so I thought it was interesting, and if you read their papers or letters, you can always see them talking
mm,
about, "I didn't get paid," or "I wanted that," or,
Yeah.
for the
yeah,
frustrations of trying to make a living as a
yeah,
writer or a publisher.
yeah,
It's interesting you mentioned the sort of Slayer studies. There was a short course that I put in our podcast group chat just maybe about a week ago or so, Cal.
yeah. It's about Wicca.
And it's Jane Espenson that's teaching it.
Oh, yeah.
It's about an 8 to 10 week course, and I really wish I had the time that I could do it because it looks, you know,
Here's something important. I actually slightly knew her for, you kind of have
Uh-huh.
times where you know somebody because of mutual work and then life moves on. But I knew her somewhat, and she said to me something I will share about, what you're asking about women, empowering
Uh-huh.
women. And she said to me once, "Nancy, there is a lot of power in the word no." And, a couple times I've said yes when I should have said no, and I think about Jane Espenson. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're saying that, like, with obviously what you're saying about women and that, like, it seems like Buffy was a perfect fit for you in that way with that
Uh-huh.
character. Or
Yeah.
because I know she represents that to so many girls growing up in the 90s. Because not only was there so few female role models, they nailed it so much with her, didn't they?
Right. Well, and also, although I'm not a fan of season 6, sorry. She made a lot of mistakes that she recovered from, or a
Yeah.
friend would say, "I forgive you," or they'd all gang up or get together and fix the problem and stuff, and I like
Yeah.
that. She wasn't perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
neither was Dina, but, she was a kid, and so
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot, and I had a friend who was 17 at the time, and she was watching Buffy with me on the night that Buffy and Angel have sex. And I said, "Okay, Ida, what have we learned?" And she goes, "Don't ever have sex with vampires." I'm like, "There you go, girl." But but it was kinda like, take it easy, but that's not the message Ida shared. But yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I think we've spoken about it on when we're talking about the individual shows, but for me, one of the things that is so good about the show is that Buffy is allowed to have mistakes.
Yeah.
She's allowed, and she might not always grow from it, but she always learns from it, and it follows. There's something very real for a show that's set in a world filled with so much magic and mythology and so on. There's something very, very real about how the characters are allowed to grow and develop, and I think for me, certainly, that's why it's always stuck for close to 30 years now. I've been watching it.
It's funny because people used to, when Buffy first came out, they characterized it as a kid show, and I don't know how it was in Europe. I'm pretty sure I know, but in the United States, they quickly discovered that it was a mother-daughter date night, that adults would come up to me all the time and say, "Don't tell anybody, but I watch Buffy." And they discovered that the average age of a Buffy viewer was 40. And so it was not a teen show or a kid show, because that's why people blew it and they made mistakes and they were flawed and they still came back from it. And and I still, one of my most, it was funny because I was just thinking about this, probably because I knew I was going to talk to you. When Angel comes back and Giles says to Buffy, "He tortured me for hours and you hid him. You have no respect for me." And he's right, but in another Wuthering Heights kind of world, sh the true love of Buffy and Angel could not be, forbidden, but he's right, and it was like, yeah, that was kinda crappy, um, but it made her so three-dimensional, and Giles too,
And Giles.
everybody. So, and and that spoke to me, and I loved it because I'm a Southern Californian, so it was so that correct. I started crying when I watched the first episode. I just thought, "This is my show," and a lot of people did, obviously. So, but yeah, that's one of the things I really loved is you're right. They made mistakes and they weren't perfect at all.
Well, you're asking about how it was presented in the UK. In a very strange way, they publicised this show when it was coming. You might not know this, but do you know what the Giles actor was famous for in the UK before Buffy?
No.
He did commercials here. He did this. It was these commercials.
Right. The
It's
Nestle
coffee.
thing. Yeah.
And that's basically how shows this. The guy from the coffee advert is going to be fighting vampires. What's this about? And also, I know Giles had to explain to them, no, this shows, it's actually got more to it. Yeah, but you're the coffee guy. What on earth are you doing in this weird American show about a teenager fighting vampires? It's almost like, aren't you a proper actor and all this? That's what it was. The gold blend guy, wasn't it? The gold blend guy.
True.
He's going to be fighting vampires.
Well, I was gonna interview him, and I watched everything I could find that he had been in. And I don't know the demographics of this show, so I'm gonna be very cautious. But there was, a movie he was in, and I didn't have time to watch it. So when I called him, or he called me, however the phone interview worked, I said something like, "Oh, I loved all your work, and I saw you in this movie, blah, blah." And he goes, "Oh, really?" Because it was sexy. It was sexual. And he said, "Oh my goodness." And I said, Okay, I'm lying. I didn't really see that movie. He said, "I'm sorry, I'm trying to impress you," and he started laughing, and he said, kinda like, "Okay, now we're friends," or something. I
Yeah,
mean, not that we were friends, but I was real. I wasn't
yeah,
trying to, "Oh, I
Yeah.
loved everything,"
yeah.
but I said, "Okay, I'm lying. I'm sorry, I'm lying to you."
Well, he's a
But it
Brit,
was really
so
embarrassing. I thought, "Okay, don't ever do that again."
I'm gonna say he's English, so if you had just opened and said, "Have you got any coffee?" He would have got it straight away, and he would have seen you in the flesh. Yeah, like, that's what
But
any of us would do if
yeah.
we walked up to him and said, "Have you got a cup of coffee, mate?" He gets that
Yeah.
probably all the time in this country. 'Cause it's funny, like, another one I can remember is, Hugh Laurie, Doctor House?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
We have such a when we saw him doing Doctor House, it broke our minds because he was in Blackadder, and he was in another show called Jeeves and Wooster,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
where he plays this very goofy upper class, posh guy, and then suddenly he's this acerbic drug addict doctor who's just, "What? How do you do that?"
But also a bit
I
of Frying Laurie. He was a sketch comedian.
Yes,
Before
and a
I
singer.
forget, I wanna
Yeah.
tell you, I don't know if you watch Fallout. Do you know about
Oh,
Fallout?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Kate Espenson wrote an
Covered it.
episode. Yeah,
Yep.
in the 2nd season. 'Cause
Yeah.
we've been watching it, and when Jane Espenson, like, "Oh my god!" So, yeah, how about that?
We've reviewed Fallout season 1 and 2, and,
Yep.
it's good stuff. That is really good
Really
stuff,
good,
and
but man, is it gory. I swear to God, that's
Yeah.
so gory.
they love popping heads, don't they?
It's true to the games.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's got Walton Goggins in it, who is just brilliant to watch in everything.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
what I feel like I have to ask on behalf of Rhiannon and Elena, but what was the Anthony Head sexy movie? Was it Lady Chatterley?
Can't remember. Can't remember. But I don't know if I should explain what's going on, but, he's
Well,
in his bedroom with someone else, and, yeah, and he's indicating his interest, and, I can't say
that's,
anymore. If I
I
think of it, I'll email you and let you know if I find
it's
it.
I think
But it's
that's,
really, really embarrassing because he's
Rhiannon, Elena, and Eileen suddenly perked up there.
Yep.
No.
yeah.
And everyone else that's listening. Yeah.
So, like, we haven't really touched on, your original work, so I think we've only got a few minutes left, so
Oh,
here we
thank
go.
you.
It's all been Buffy talk, so I hope you don't mind that, but, like, say, I mean, the obvious question is, like, how different it is, like, when you've got your original work, like, the blank page in front of you, and you've got is it just more liberating, I say? Or
Yes and no. At first, when I was trying to have a career, um, which I succeeded at, I was writing all kinds of things, and I had an agent back then. I've had 3 agents, but my first agent said, "You have to decide who you are. You have, like, these different voices, and you and I don't know how to market you to keep it going and la la la,"
Mhm.
and it kinda bummed me out. life went on, and then my 3rd agent, this is sort of like the poem My Last Duchess, but anyway, my 3rd agent said, "Do you feel sometimes like you're too diffuse?" And I said, "Yes, I do feel like that." And he goes, "Well, let me tell you, you're still working as a freelance writer, and I have writers who are bagging groceries at Whole Foods, and, they insisted on staying in one box. And so
Mhm.
that was liberating in a way. I have had many times where people don't know that I did anything else. They don't know I beat Stephen King. They don't know those things about me. They just know me as a tie-in writer, and that kinda hurts my feelings, but they know what they know.
Mhm.
I've been around for a long time, and, I've done a lot of different things, and when I'll say, "Oh, yeah, I did that," and they'll like, "What?" And that kind of I wish it weren't like that, but then I
Yeah.
look at
Mhm.
actors, and they go through the same thing, coffee commercials. But,
Yeah.
so and it's hard when you are well established in something, to divert, to do something different. People like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we could sell that, and that's frustrating.
Yeah.
But so I've sort of tried to. I kind of think of my career as a whole bunch of different side quests,
Yeah.
and they're all
Yeah.
leading to the same thing, which is survival.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, but it's been really fun to do a whole bunch of different things, and I will say that having had a lot of Buffy and other tie-in work,
Mhm.
Yeah.
gave me the luxury of trying other things on the
Yeah.
side, and because I was so noted by, the Buffy tie-in kind of
Yeah.
community, it didn't jeopardize
Yeah.
my other stuff, so, yeah.
'Cause I think it's a bit like what Brent Spiner, who played Data on Star Trek, was. I was tied into that character, but it kept me afloat for 8 years, and not many actors can say that they were
That's
Mhm.
right.
guaranteed to pay their rent for 8 years. I
Mhm.
suppose that's sort of similar to being in the tie-in scene. You know there's a steady stream of work coming your way. Probably something a lot of authors
You
don't
know
have that luxury, I'm guessing.
Right, right, right.
do you know, literally today I was listening to the Once We Were Spacemen podcast,
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion and Alan
Uh,
Tudyk, and they were chatting with Mark Addy,
uh,
from Game of Thrones, Phil Monty and so on, Cal. And he was
Mhm.
talking about how he signed up for season 1 Game of Thrones thinking, it's one of these shows that nobody really knows. It's not like Lord of the Rings. It's not well known. It'll get me a year's worth of work. And then
yeah.
how many years later he's still sitting talking about
Well,
it. And yeah.
Yeah.
right. Well, same with David Boreanaz. He was just supposed to
Mhm.
be a one-off of this harvest
Mhm.
thing, and then Nathan Fillion, he was Caleb,
Yep.
and then he became who he is. So yeah. And it's interesting to me how, for example, David Boreanaz has just gone on and been in more and more things.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. So yay him.
Mhm.
But yeah. So you're right.
All right, what's the
As
time?
as a horror writer,
Yeah.
who
Carry on,
would
good.
you say? As a horror writer, who would you say is the most viscerally horrific villain in Buffy?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I suppose I should say the first, but I actually did like Caleb a lot. He was just so
Mhm.
freaky and so blah, and he wasn't in charge, which is more frightening. It's
Yeah.
frightening to have somebody who's not really all there, and he
Mhm.
wasn't all there. And, so I think him, but I will say my episodes, let's see. It's the episode where the first starts appearing and, at
Mhm.
the near the end, and,
Yep.
uh, appears as I can't remember her name. I can see her in my head. She was the young girl who knew she was going to die, and
Mhm.
then later
Oh,
on
yes.
yeah, she appears as the first, and
Mhm.
actually they wanted, Um, I feel like I have Alzheimer's today. They wanted, um, Amber Benson. They wanted Amber
Right.
Benson to be
Yep.
that character, but she didn't wanna be evil. So, this
Mhm.
young woman, the episode where the guys with the coins and she has a heart attack and dies, that woman, she's talking and her mouth comes up like this, and then it kinda swallows her
Mhm.
head. Ah, it was so freaky, and that has still it's that scared me and still scares me. It's
Yeah.
so bizarre that,
Yeah.
it's like Japanese horror or Korean horror,
Yes.
where
Yep.
it's kind
Yeah.
of ambiguous, you don't know why, you don't know how it's just out there, and I
Mhm.
that's why I liked it so much. I love J-horror and K-horror, so
Right. This is a last question. You might have hinted at this earlier, but is there a franchise you would so really love to do some tie-in novels for? I think you
oh,
might have
Stargate.
hinted at. Yeah.
Stargate SG-1. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, oh, please. Yeah, I love Stargate. Stargate was cool. And I
Yeah.
actually joined the Richard Dean Anderson fan club.
Cool.
And I haven't gotten any news lately, but it'll be like, Richard was in a fried chicken commercial in Tennessee. I'm like, I am on it. I am watching it. And,
And,
he's very big into the environment and
all right.
and like Greenpeace kind of things, like Sea
I've
Shepherd.
heard he's like just an awesome person, Richard Dean Anderson, all round, kind of.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
also, I know, like with a woman as well, he's a big hit for other reasons as
Yeah.
well.
hunk. He's still a hunk.
Yeah,
So
but
yeah,
I was
it is.
also to say, we've got the news. Buffy's coming back
Yes.
this year, I believe. And I've just got to ask from you: are you like from your own self? Ooh, is this new work coming your way, possibly for tie-in
No, I
novel?
don't think so,
Oh,
honestly, because earlier when they did a post Buffy book called Slayer, and
Yeah.
they had a newer, younger, young adult writer
Yeah.
write it. And at first I'm like, what? And then I thought, well, that's so Hollywood, is you buying a fresh voice. And so I'm sure there'll be a new generation for the
Yeah.
new generation. And that's fine. That's fine. I had my
Yeah.
wonderful run, and I'm cool with that. So
Yeah. Because I was just wondering, even from your own, like Buffy's now a lot older. Like, surely that would be interesting as a writer. Like, she's now 40 years old. What's happened to her? There's so much good writing. And
yeah,
that's got to
sitting there with a big
probably
old
get your
blood
brain going
vessel.
a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
you've got
no,
your author
honestly,
instinct,
yeah.
so they'll be going there. I'm guessing.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
It should, somebody wrote and said, like referring to Stephen King, shouldn't these
Yeah.
people stand aside? And people are like, what are you talking about? But in a way, I feel kind of like I can do other stuff now, and
Yeah.
it's cool to see somebody
Yeah.
else. Let's see what you got,
Yeah.
so I'm good.
All right. Have you got anything else there, Graham?
No, I mean, I could segue into Firefly for an hour if you want, but
Well, maybe.
or Hellboy, or
River? River, come back!
you
I was
it's an
actually
amazing
thinking
career.
about Firefly the other day and how wackadoo it was, but we're all like, Fallout. I mean, he looks like, the Man in Black. So what? I don't. It's a thing. So yeah,
Oh well, maybe when we do our Firefly shows, we could invite Nancy back on if you want to talk Firefly with us.
absolutely.
I would
But
love
Oh,
that.
yes, there we go. All right. So we're coming to the end, and the way we end this is just a silly, quick-fire round of questions for you. So, are you good to go for that?
absolutely, go. You do your thing. Go.
All right. These are quite bizarre. Like,
Okay.
if Buffy had to fight a monster made entirely of cheese, what would its demon name be?
What would its name be?
Yeah, it was a monster just made of cheese.
Cheezilla.
Oh, nice one. Have you got a good one there, Graham?
No, I was sort of playing around with Roquefort somewhere and something that could be there, but
Roquefortium.
that'll do. Thank you.
All right. What's scarier to you? A haunted typewriter that edits your drafts for you, or a ghost that gives you unsolicited writing advice?
The ghost. The ghost. The ghost would say, "I have a great idea. You write it down, and we'll split the money."
Right.
That's what the ghost would say.
And I wrote this question. I wrote it. I'm not implying this is not about women drivers, although it
Right.
might sound the way about. If you could summon one fictional character to help you parallel park, who would it be and why?
Help me what?
Parallel park.
Paddle.
Parallel parking.
Parallel park. Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. Sorry, you're
All right.
you just don't sound like a Californian. This is a good question because I cannot parallel park.
All
And so
right.
who would help me parallel park?
Yeah, who would you? If you any fictional character to help you do the job.
Riley.
All right.
He'd be very patient. Yeah, Riley.
I was going to
What-
suggest Giles as the Fjarl demon.
Oh,
He's
you're
kind of
right.
like her.
You're right. You're right.
What's the most impractical magic item you can imagine carrying in your handbag?
Ooh. The one that could help me parallel park.
Right. If vampires had to file taxes, what deduction would they argue for most passionately?
Medical, um, yeah, blood should be deductible as a medical expense.
All right. Um, what classic monster would absolutely fail a group project?
Oh. Frankenstein. Well, actually, that's a misnomer because Frankenstein was actually quite brilliant and spoke French. So let me back up. Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing would fail the
Nice.
project. Yeah.
So, if you were cursed for one day and all you could speak in was book titles, what book title would you use to order a coffee?
Oh. What would I say? Some Like It Hot. I guess that's not a book, is it? It's not a book. Is it a
Yeah.
book? Some Like It Hot.
I don't think it
Uh,
is.
I'll check.
okay. If it was wine, it could be Grapes of Wrath.
But it's a coffee order and you can only
It's
use a book title.
coffee. Oh my god, I'm looking at my bookcase.
This is
I
might
ca
bring this.
It's
Why
a
We Love
guide
the
to it, I'm
Haunted
finding.
Mansion? I don't know.
All right.
I keep thinking of Gone with the Wind, but it has nothing to do with coffee at all. Out of Africa.
There we go. That works.
First one
Yeah.
that came to mind, A Shot in the Dark.
Ah,
Nick.
perfect.
So, what's the least intimidating name for a demon who wants to take over the world?
A team that wants to take
A demon.
Oh, a demon. A demon. Mm. Baticus. Pacificus.
Yeah. If you could rewrite one fairy tale to include a surprise musical number, which one would it be?
Oh. Oh. Well, they've all been done. A surprise musical number. A fairy tale. The Six Swans. He's going, "Well, I've
Okay.
never heard of that one," but you may have because you
Yeah.
were well educated in your nation.
And here we go, Graham. This one you might be able to answer. Which supernatural creature would be the worst podcast host?
Oh,
Um, hmm, a creature.
Yeah, just creature. What supernatural creature would
An
be
orc.
the worst?
An orc would be very bad.
You're trying to think of a good one, Graham. I know that look.
See, I'm thinking in universe. Keeping it within
Dracula would
the
be
theme of
very
the show.
good because he's got a lot of history.
But
Adam,
you're thinking Adam.
season
Oh,
4.
Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is not a trivia question, it's just one we fire off to all our guests. Would you ever consider visiting us in Scotland?
Oh, I'd love it. Oh, are
Oh,
you
yeah.
crazy? Sure. I have to tell you, I am a big Arthur Conan Doyle fan. And
All
so,
right.
Scotland,
Well,
the
Oh,
fatherland.
well, if you come over, we can take you to the Arthur Conan Doyle pub in Edinburgh. There's
Oh,
one at the
there,
bottom of Princess
there.
Street, isn't it?
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of my friends in the Sherlock Holmes world have been over there and send pictures and brag a lot. And by the way, Michael Crichton, who was the originator of Jurassic Park, was a huge fan of Arthur Conan Doyle and even named one of his books The Last World. And he went to the Center for Psychical Research and saw Arthur Conan Doyle's chair. And so I wrote a chapter about him and that connection for a book. So, yeah, I'm all over that. Okay, I'm on the plane. As soon
Well, if you like whiskey, we'll pour you we'll have a nice malt whiskey waiting for you when you arrive. So
yeah, but none of
I
that
think
stuff.
I think
Sorry,
we've
no
set it up.
Vegas. I'm a vegetarian.
And if anyone wants to reach out to you to contact you, Nancy, how do they get a hold of you?
They can contact me at mailfornancyholder@gmail.com. I'm very happy to hear from them. I'm not on Facebook right now. I'm taking a break. But if you just email me, I'll email you back.
Yeah. So with that, thank you so much for taking the time out. And I think there's every possibility we might have you back in the future if you're
Thank
up
you.
for it. We'd definitely love to have you
Thank
back.
you. I love it.
And I'm sure, Graham, you'd be up for that as well.
Absolutely.
Of course.
It's been a very, very quick 90 minutes.
Yeah, it has been. That's just flown by in the best possible. So, and also thank you for everyone watching and listening, and leave us a like, review, and all that good stuff. Helps us out a lot. And again, big thanks to Nancy for taking the time out.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank
Right,
you, guys.
good night or good afternoon for you on the other side of the world.